as we said, today's topic is our story is still being written, and celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King and the evolution of how things work, the experience, I wanted to address the stories that we write, both personally and collectively. Because today, what we're doing is standing on someone who had a vision, but it wasn't just his vision. It was something that was in the collective that was working and working and working, and all of a sudden, there was a spokesperson for that consciousness. We are one. All people are created equal. Well, today I want to talk about our story that we write in 3 different ways: in the remembering, in the reclaiming, and the reawakening. And I want to tell our story and address our story both personally and collectively. So in the remembering, when we talk about Dr. King or we watch the March on Washington, we are retelling something. We are standing on the premise, on the base of a story that has moved us in an evolutionary way, a consciousness that woke us up. And that was, for those of us who were participating at that time, that's what it was. It was a wake-up call. So when we tell our story in religious science, we talk about our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, who also is a representation of a consciousness that was awakening. Ernest Holmes was born in, I think it was 1887, and he passed away in 1960. So he was involved in a consciousness of that was unfolding in the culture. There was Thoreau, Ralph Waldo Emerson, the Transcendentalists. People were dealing with a new awakening. And Ernest Holmes got involved in that consciousness, and he became a spokesperson for the opening of an idea that God's presence was love, was where we are, and we had access to it. And not only access to it, it lived in us and it lived as us. Now, this was a huge leap in consciousness from the spiritual stories that have been told about born in sin, not enoughness, the transactional, if you're good, you go to heaven, a transactional theology. Get something, if you do something, you get something. And all of a sudden, that got blown out of the water. Thank God. Because that's why we're here today. Because that root, in retelling the story, we understand that we are standing on the shoulders of people who stepped out of the culture, who moved themselves away from ideas that didn't serve humanity, that didn't serve us as human beings. We're not worms the dust. We're not all those old stories that had been told and are still being told. Stories of limitation, stories of the absence of the divine, that you had to be something or act some way to be loved by God. All of that started to fall away, and our founder, Ernest Holmes, was telling another story. He was telling a story of our goodness, of the abilities we have, that if the infinite presence, the creator of the universe, is right within us, that we can create and create a new way and create a new life. So that was the beginning of our remembering and telling a story of direct contact. You know, I come from a very traditional Christian background. So when I heard Ernest Holmes, I was thrilled because I liberated. When my mother heard Ernest Holmes, she thought I might be going to hell. was a little scary. We had a lot of different ideas. But when things went on, of course, the culture changed and people changed and there was openings to new ideas and new things. And so what does it mean to us personally today? What does Ernest Holmes influence? Well, for us, personally, we have the awareness, the consciousness of God's loving presence within us, that we're here by divine appointment, that everything that we need will be provided. And for us today, personally, what we get to understand is our own personal power. Change your thinking, change your life. Because when Ernest Holmes was exploring God, the idea of God, the mystery, because who could understand the mind that creates universes and does all this thing? But Ernest Holmes knew one thing. He said, if I know one thing about God, I know God is creative. God must create because look at the world. And how does God create? Well, it must create out of itself because there's nothing else. In the beginning, God is eternal, always was and always will be, brought forth life, but brought it out of itself. So all life must contain that seed of God. And he wanted us to develop that seed. He wanted us to water that seed, to plant that seed, and to let that seed grow. So I appreciated, Court, your sharing about your workshop, because once we start understanding the concepts that were presented to us, we have to let go of old ways of being. And so it becomes personal. What in your life do you want to let go of? Not because you're bad and you're going to go someplace bad if you don't, but because it doesn't serve you. Because you're so magnificent, you should have a life that works. It's such a different framework. So in the remembering today with Martin Luther King, I also want to remember our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, who was taking the message of evolution, taking the message that all people are created equal, and having the willingness to leave what was considered the religious ethic of the day and stepping out. And I know that is our call. I know that's the call in our heart. I know that by just being conscious, taking the classes, reading the books, doing what's necessary to claim our spirit. If something isn't working in your life, it's not because you did something or something's bad. You don't have to go into that dynamic, even though it could be interesting. All I have to do is sit quietly and remember, here by divine appointment, here because you are unconditionally loved by the divine. That's it. That's what you have to grasp. And because of that, you will unfold in the right way. Just allowing what doesn't work to move aside and to step forward in a bigger picture of who you are personally and who we are collectively. So that is the remembering. The other is the reclaiming. So the reclaiming was, Ernest Holmes was planting these ideas. The textbook came out in 1926, Jim? Okay, in 1926. But it was in the 70s and 80s, the law of attraction. How many workshops did you go to? How many songs did you sing? We know what happened. It was, the secret. Oh my God, it burst onto the scenes. Everyone, we were reclaiming our root. We said, wow, this stuff is fabulous. And it works. The law of attraction. And it moved into a more secular and into the larger population. And people started understanding their own power and understanding, this thing, there's laws around this. It's not only that God's here, but there are laws operating in the universe, in our spiritual universe, that helps creation. And that law is about thinking. It's about having a thought other than the one that's not serving you. How do I get a thought? How do I create a new thought? And people were putting the spiritual reality of who we truly are, spiritual beings having human experience, that reality started to sink in. And there were movies, workshops, everything that you could imagine, because we were reclaiming a truth that was already established by many people, but we happen to follow the teachings of Dr. Holmes. And in that reclaiming, not only were we understanding ourselves as creative beings, but we started using affirmations and seeing results. There's nothing like seeing results to prove a point. And for us, our affirmations started becoming our prayers. And we started developing a prayerful life. And what we did was in our prayer isn't, oh, please, I'll be really good. Well, I used to pray like this. I'll do this if you give me that. I promise I'll be good. The prayer changed to, there is one life. I know you're here. That life is my life now. Because it is my life now, I now receive and accept whatever it is that I want to bring forward, whatever result I want to see. And I give thanks for this. I give thanks because I'm moving my consciousness in a new way, and I release it, and I let it go, and I present it to the divine heart of God, because a thought plus a feeling equals the demonstration. So I feel it. I feel deserving of it. I feel close to that result that I want to experience. So we were moving in the reclaiming of our tradition, and we had books on health, wealth, prosperity, goodness. You couldn't stop us. I mean, it was a phenomena that moved into the culture, just like Martin Luther King. I share this today because everyone on our wisdom wall over here held the same dream. And each and every one of us in these seats hold this dream. And I'm sharing with you because I truly bless you and thank you, because the culture is already changing. Everyone wears yoga pants now. Come on. Something big is really happening. So, and in the personal, we're rewriting our story. We're retelling the story in a fuller way. Now, I want to talk about the most important part of the talk for me is the reawakening. Because I am so happy for a younger generation like the Amy Rose and her friends that are part of our community, because they're waking us up to a new way of seeing things, because we're evolving. We're moving in consciousness. And at one time, when we were in our evolutionary stage, because we knew our thinking created our life, if someone was having problems, we'd have, I wonder what's in their consciousness. It was our version of sin, so to speak. We were growing out of it, but we couldn't figure out how did it work, because we knew thoughts are the beginning of form. Before there's form, there's always the thought. This was designed by someone. Someone had an idea. The stage, someone had an idea. The thought was there, then the form expressed. So we were thinking, well, how does that work? There must have been a bad thought there. But the younger generation, the new religious science, the part of us that is reawakening right now understands we have AI, we have brain scans, we have heredity, we have genes, we have a lot of factors in our consciousness. Because deeply we are one. So thinking it's just my thought, if I just think this hard enough, it's going to happen. And if it didn't happen, there must be something wrong with me. Forget that one. We're moving and evolving to a place where love supports us. And there is a lot of things that are going on. We have the understanding of how the brain works. We have the understanding of how heredity works, how cultural beliefs work. And we're incorporating that. And how we're expressing that is moving in consciousness from me to we. It's a huge leap, but we're moving from me to we. Jesus said it, what you do unto others, you do unto yourself. There's only one life, that life is God. This is what Ernest Holmes was telling us. But in this reawakening, in the moving from me to we, we're maturing, we're evolving. And before, we didn't know the vast interconnectedness of all life. And we thought we were solo. We were all playing it solo. But that day isn't here anymore. We can't look at the world today and think we're not connected. The world needs us right now. And the idea of the one life is taking root, and our story is being rewritten. So today I would like to read, every week you hear the idea of a world that works for everyone. Don't we say that every week? But I want to read to you the points that religious science has in that vision. And after service, I've made copies of this to be handed out so you can understand where we are right now, the idea we're holding, the vision we're holding, the reawakening that's happening for us, because I know that because of our consciousness, we have agency. We all need each other. And we have to get past the us and them, the divisions that are going on that are so deep, and all of us are so wounded. When I watch the news, it requires that much more time in prayer. It's really hard to see how we're treating each other, how unkind we are, how divided we are. This is a leap in consciousness. Think about the people before civil rights, slaves, thinking it's never going to change. What a horrible thing. But someone, somewhere, had an idea that allowed for expansion. This is the idea that I want to share with you that religious science and other people are holding, but we have it in our community. Here's our global vision. We are a world that works for everyone, where all life is honored as an expression of the divine, where people live according to their spiritual truth, where humanity awakens to its spiritual magnificence and rediscovers its creative power, where we live as one global family, where kinship with all life prospers, where unity and connection are emphasized, where forgiveness is the norm. I think we should have written that twice. Where forgiveness is the norm, where spiritual guidance is valued, where we are called to conscious social action, where people have enough food, homes, and a sense of belonging, where there is peace, justice, and harmony for all, where resources are valued, cared for, and shared, where communities are meaningfully involved in service to the world, where there is renewed emphasis on beauty, nature, creativity, art, and aesthetics. Reverend Michael Beckwith said, "We will either be pushed by pain or pulled by a vision." Which will it be? Pulled by a vision. I hope you pick one of these up. I hope you keep it somewhere in your house where you can see it. I hope you pray over it. I hope you move in your own life to understand the evolutionary process that we're in, and that you make your life work and assist in making the life of all people work with our global vision. We're still writing the story. That's the talk of the day. We're still writing the story. But for me, I know I'm committed. And when generations come and they remember our time like we're remembering Martin Luther King, I know they're going to say, if we stay our course, that they took a leap. They changed their thinking, and they changed the world. Thank you so much.